twinkly, sparkly, a diamond planet. Isn't it beautiful? You know what's even more beautiful? The fact that trillions of these planets might be existing out there in the void right now, just waiting to be harvested. But no, seriously, welcome to Office Hours. Whoa. Wow, the ejection pods on that thing is just getting faster and faster. How many G's am I pulling? Doesn't matter. You know why? Because welcome to Office Hours. We're broadcasting live, as you can see, from the facility, my not villainy place where I, good old Professor Kyle, opens up his blast bay doors and talks to you about everything science and pop culture and nerdy throughout the week and just throughout the universe. As we usually do, we'll be going through a number of topics on this week's podcast, 5 to be exact, but during that we'll be taking your comments, questions, and comments about my hair and face, and we'll also be taking super chats, which is enabled on YouTube if you're watching live right now. If you really want me to see it, I will try my very best to get to all of the super chats, but if I don't, just know that you're still simping for science, and every simp selps. So, before we get to everything, just a couple of reminders. If you want to join the facility, if you want to get on the staff today, if you want to get on our Patreon and our Discord, where you get stuff like this every day of the week, you can go to patreon.com/Kyle Hill, as my security team is putting in the chat, and speaking of security, if you're being weird, if you're putting all caps, you're putting suggestive or weird stuff in there, you're banned. Because that's how I roll in here. I have turrets. You don't want the turrets. So this week on Office Hours, it's live, we'll be going through a number of topics as we usually do. The first topic will be diamond planets, as the title, clickbaity though it may be, suggests. We'll also be talking about denim. Or more specifically, what denim and other associated clothing is made of, and why it's another thing that you have to worry about. Well, now I sound like the nightly news or something. We'll also be talking about eyebrows. Yes, eyebrows. Why? We'll find out in a few minutes. We'll also be taking one of your comments from the latest episode of the facility about the baby centrifuge. If you want to know more about that, you can go back to the channel. And finally, we'll be talking about the scientific breakdown of maybe the scariest plant in the world. Guess where it is? You probably know. But before we get to all of that, it's time to get to our very first topic, which is diamond planets. Diamond planets. Quick note, diamond planets are not going to look like this. This is just an artist's representation of an entire diamond planet. So, the composition of Earth is unique to the minerals and elements and constituents that went into the cloud of interstellar gas and dust that spun around and then accreted into our sun and into the planets around the sun. And so stars in solar systems that form from different materials, or planets that form around stars that have different elementary compositions, may be structured very differently from Earth. Now, as you know, Earth's mantle is not made up completely of diamond. If it was, De Beers would be out of business, even though they kind of artificially make doesn't matter. So we might imagine then that other planets somewhere out in the universe that form around different stars could have a very different composition. And that's what the first paper we're looking at today, called The Oxidation of the Interiors of Carbide Planets, is looking into. So this paper was trying to identify and then replicate the conditions under which they think a diamond planet might form. And so to identify these planets, they were looking at planets that formed around stars with a higher carbon content. As you may know, diamond is an allotrope of carbon, which means it's all carbon. It's all carbon. It's not made of anything else. It's just all little C's connected together. So it's an allotrope of carbon. And so they were looking for stars that had a higher fraction of carbon content in their composition. They were later on in their life, and so the star had begun making heavier and heavier elements, as stars do. You are star stuff. And with this composition, the planets around the star would also form with a higher carbon content. Actually, the first thing I said about the star's lifetime may or may not be true. But the star, retraction. Cross that, reverse it. The star and the planets around the star formed in a more carbon-rich environment, carbon-rich accretion disks. So the planets, these exoplanets, have more carbon in them. And so what this paper was trying to do was figure out, okay, well, if there's more carbon in these planets, a lot more carbon, and silica, could there be conditions under which diamond might form? Because diamonds are forever, but not thermodynamically. You can quote me on that. So what this paper was looking at was a process that involved water, the interaction between water, carbon, silica, and very, very high temperatures and pressures. So what the paper did was they brought the science of the stars down to Earth, and they took some diamond and this kind of proto-diamond that you're seeing here, diamond and dense hydrosilica on the right there. They took all these conditions and they put them between two big pieces of metal, basically. And on either sides of these pieces, at the points of these pieces of metal, they had diamond on either side. Then in between that, they put this proto-diamond, and then with big machines, they squeezed it together until the pressure and the temperature, therefore, was crazy, crazy high. And what they found was that, yes, this process of having a high carbon planet, high carbon mantle planet, if it was to encounter some water during its formation, and water is not rare in the universe, if it was to encounter some water, hydrous silica, then through temperature and pressure, through planetary geology formation, what have you, then a diamond mantle could form. And given how many stars like this are potentially in the universe, there's 100 billion stars, 100 billion stars per galaxy, 100 billion galaxies. That's a lot of stars. So the scientists estimate there could be 1 trillion planets that have makeups like this. Only a small fraction of that billion, but still a lot. So given that this paper established a working theory for how diamond planets might form, silica, carbon-rich formation, high temperature and pressure, diamond planet, I wanted to do a little bit of math with you, and let's consider this like a kind of a classroom situation, because whenever these figures are pushed out in headlines, like a diamond planet would be worth X amount of money. Well, how do they calculate that kind of thing? Well, it's relatively straightforward, but if you never tried it yourself, it's kind of empowering to do the math. So how would we calculate the value of a diamond planet? Well, first of all, let's start with a planet size. Let's take Earth, because we all know the size of Earth, roughly. It's about 6 times 10 to the 24 kilograms. So how would we find the volume of Earth and the mass of Earth that would be diamond if it were a diamond planet? Well, if just the mantle in these planets' formation, if just the mantle would be diamondoid, then what we can do to start estimating this, think about it. We actually have 2 spheres, and one of them is a shell, right? If you have the whole Earth, the mantle of the Earth, which isn't the whole way down, would be like a spherical shell around the core. And we know the depth of the mantle and the depth of Earth's core. So what we would do is take the equation for the volume of a sphere, 4/3 pi r cubed. We take the total volume of Earth, and then we subtract out the volume of the core, leaving only the volume of the mantle, 4/3 pi r cubed. Now, once we have the volume of the mantle, we need some kind of mass. Mass multiplied by density, volume multiplied by density, rather. The volumes cancel out because density is mass over volume, and then we would get a mass. So we have the radius of Earth minus the volume of Earth minus the volume of the core times the density of diamond, And this will give us the raw mass in kilograms of a full diamondoid planet's mantle. Now, what I did then was the estimation of how much a diamond costs has so many different weird just human variables, like cut, quality, clarity, all that stuff. But what I did is just basically took what is the mass of 1 carat and what is the lowest cost for a carat diamond on the low end, just to give us a conservative estimate. So if 1 carat is 200 milligrams, we divide our kilograms by 200 milligrams. That's how many carats of diamond we have. And then we multiply that by the value per carat. And now we have an amount of money. That amount of money is 2.56 times 10 to the 31 dollars. That is 2.5 trillion 25 million trillion dollars. If you want to put that into context, that is 71 quadrillion times the entire total wealth of the planet Earth, of everything. So the total value of everything on Earth in terms of monetary wealth times 70 quadrillion, that is the potential value of a diamond planet the size of Earth whose mantle is full diamond. It gives you a sense, just because of the numbers involved, how mineral rich a spacefaring civilization could be. If you have rare earth, quote unquote, rare earth materials or highly valuable materials, if they're available in any kind of small percentage across the universe in these large masses, planets, asteroids, comets, all that stuff, you could basically have limitless resources. And I think 25 million trillion dollars for a single planet proves that, which kind of also gives like credence to the value of like Dune, Arrakis. I'm getting off track. The value of a diamond planet, not priceless, but priced more than anything you've ever seen ever. Oh, I should have photoshopped this to be like the top of Jeff Bezos' head. Never mind. Kyle Trevino with the 23 frequent supporter says, my main man Kyle, keep sciencing. Love what you're doing. Keep at it. Simp for science. Yes. We have Zane Textor with the 5 who says, hey, the Kyle show. Love. What are your thoughts on the Parthian battery? Do you think ancient societies could have had modern technology? I've never heard of the Parthian battery. If it's ancient battery technology, battery technology more or less is just harnessing chemical reactions and using using metals. So I've like on Mythbusters, they made the Baghdad batteries. So I don't think it's crazy to assume that ancient civilizations had more higher quality technology than we usually attribute to ancient societies. But that isn't to say they had crazy technology like ancient aliens or anything like that. That's all nonsense. Bolwick with the 5, he says, hey Kyle, have you seen the video of the life-size moving Gundam in Japan? Yes, I did see that. I did not know it was going to move. That was really badass. Although I'll point out that, keep in mind, it was completely supported. It wasn't walking under its own weight. That's one of the big problems with giant robots. The material strength required to have that much mass walking on like artificial knee joints kind of makes giant robots not very viable. Eric Castro with the 10, it says, hey Kyle, love the show. Hashtag syntax. Oh, that one was correct. And that's how backward I am now. I've noticed how restaurants are open for business and have dine-in, but outdoors, at least in LA. What difference does that make? Also, you are my hair goals. Yeah. Well, being outside when there's more of an airflow would prevent, hopefully, the lingering of aerosols in the air. I think that's the thinking, but I don't know if there's a real science on it yet. I know there's a lot of evolving science on the aerosolization of these particles, so I don't have a definitive answer for you yet. A universal stick with the 10 says, could you chime in on what the hell is going in the CDC? The CDC is being hampered and infiltrated at every turn by an administration that wants to downplay risk, look good, and act like they're being very authoritative when in fact they are encouraging misinformation, mistrust of authority, and it's because of this mismanagement and this kind of reckless abuse of power in the face of public health. People are dying by the thousands in America. It's a travesty. I don't know what else to say about it. Thomas Haydrick with the 10. Love the Hey Kyle show. Just wanted to simp for science and ask, if you had unlimited budget, labor force, and time, what kind of technology would you want to build for the facility? Fusion reactor. I want a fusion reactor so I have unlimited energy to mine Bitcoin, and then buy Tesla, and SpaceX, and then start tweeting at Elon Musk about it. Decaf Coffee with the 25 says, hey Kyle, show the low. I don't like that this is a meme. I've been watching since the early days of Because Science. 4 years? It's almost 6 now, actually. I'm happy the new channel is doing so well. Regarding the Fermi paradox, why do we assume intelligent life would be selected for elsewhere? That's a blind spot, right? That is just a we can only go with. Let's cut the super chats for a second so we can move on to the next topic. Thank you so much. But because we only have a data point of 1, we are only using our own growth, our own civilization's growth, as what might be happening out there. And so just because of the grand numbers involved, we think there might be life somewhere else in the universe. But you're right. There's no evolutionary reason why a biome on a planet would necessarily head towards intelligence like our own. Patrick Peterson with the 20, just dropping by to say, hey, Zach Fournier with the 61, who just gives me a thumbs up. That's classy. Let's pause the super chats for a second. Like I said, James Johnston with the 10. Hey, Kyle, love the show. Oh, man. I finally got to catch it live. Hashtag Sim for Science. Well, thank you. I hope you're being entertained. We're about to get into some weird science in a second. Cowtessa with the 10. Hey, love the Kyle show. Just want to say hi and Sim for Science. All of these simping for sciences, just so we're clear, are going towards something very weird that I'm about to purchase. Potentially the world's most amount of this thing. The world's largest of this thing that's ever been made. Second topic. Jeans. You get them from your parents. You get them from Levi's. You wear them until they smell bad, and then you never wash them. So why am I talking about jeans? Well, of course, you may assume that everything humans do is destroying the environment, and it more or less is. We are the grandest polluters, and we're ruining the planet. And here's another unlikely source. So I'm sure most of you by now have heard of like microplastics. So plastics either broken down by environmental processes over time, or microplastics, very small plastics that are made in beads or tiny little bits and baubles that are made for a specific purpose, like shampoos, acts as an exfoliant or something like that. And there's a lot of recent science to say that those microplastics are now everywhere. And it unfortunately bioaccumulates, which means it makes its way through the food chain. So very small organisms get it in their system, they eat it, or it's associated with their food, and then larger organisms eat that, and then larger organisms eat that, and it all builds up until at the top of the food chain, if we were to eat something, we'd have a crazy high concentration of that thing. The same process is true with mercury, for example. So why does tuna have a larger mercury concentration in the meat Well, it's because mercury bioaccumulates. It gets in the tissues of smaller organisms at the bottom of the food chain, and it just builds and builds and builds as those trophic levels, as it's called in biology, build up to whatever the apex predator is. But genes. What could I be talking about genes? Well, in this study, synthetic microfiber emissions to land rival those water bodies and are growing. They don't have the snappiest titles. But the new scourge to the environment... Oh, man. Andrew Mignot with $123 donation says, keep sciencing. This next segment is for you, Andrew. Watch this. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Oh, here we go. Okay, here we go. All right. So the new scourge, don't gift that. The new scourge to the environment, it's not microplastics anymore. It's microfibers. So when we get really, really, really refined with our clothing creation process and it's more automated, it's in factories, there's water runoff, blah, 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 blah. More and more tiny, tiny, tiny fibers are making their way into the environment and are accumulating and are a detriment to the ecology in a similar way that that microplastics are. Look no further than a graph like this. So I love charts like this because they show a total amount of something and then where that amount is going. And on the left here, you can see different sources of microfibers, like in clothing and jeans, etc. See North America, this is China here, which is the largest. And that KT is kilotons. So 49,000 tons in North America. A ton is 1,000 kilograms. So this is 49 million pounds of really, really fine stuff that works its way into the environment and into biology and is not great. And as you can see, it accumulates on the right here in landfills, on the land, and even more so, and even scarier, in bodies of water. And so if you read the study, it says, we estimate that, we estimate that 6 billion kilograms of synthetic microfibers were emitted from apparel washing between 1950 and 2016. Half of this amount was emitted during the last decade. Half of this amount was in the last decade. So in 70 years, half of it was in the last 10, which means we are accelerating this process. A compound annual growth rate of 13%. So if you've taken accounting, you know that's bad. Water received 3 billion kilograms, while combined emissions to terrestrial environments and landfill were almost as large and are growing. It's preventing emissions at the source would therefore be an effective mitigation measure. This is bad. So billions of kilograms making its way into the environment. I'm at a loss for words. I feel like every week I bring up some new terrible thing, but I don't think you're getting this information from other sources, right? I think a lot of, well, you might be, but I think a lot of popular science communication is very, how does sneezes work? How do sneezes work? And what's a black hole? Yeah, that's fun, yes. But as human beings continuing to exist on this planet, there are so many unforeseen consequences. So yes, getting clothing, cheap, easy to make clothing to everyone on the planet for not a lot of money everywhere, it has a lot of advantages, but we need to be tracking the disadvantages too, because this is going to come back to bite. Like, look, I know you love your low-rise jeans, ladies. I like them too. But you know what I don't like? Your butt fabric showing up in fish. And you can quote me on that. The Muffin Princessa with the $50 donation. It says, first time watching the stream. I work in a hospital and constantly talk about the things I learned from you to the kiddos. They really get instructed. I want you to know that you impact so many. Keep up the great work, you non-supervillain. Oh. Thank you so much, Princessa. If I can be a part of your day in any way, especially if I can be interesting or entertaining to your children. That is, you know, I've kind of crystallized this answer for myself, but I want to be, the ultimate goal for me would be 5 or 10 years from now for some kid to come up to me and be like, I went into engineering, I became a doctor, I like physics, I did this, that, or the other thing, I like science because of that thing that you did. That's what I'm trying to get at. So if I can help you or your kids. We have 10 from Neely Collier, or Collier, depending on your Midwesternness. As a parent, I just want to say thank you for all you do to spread knowledge, however weird it may get at times. How dare you? My son will actually sit down and listen to you, and that is priceless. Hashtag Sim for Science. Hey, if you're watching right now, I need you to sit down. Sit down for a second, all right? I need you to listen to your mom. Your mom's very busy. It's hard taking care of you when you're running around, eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, getting your hand all covered in jelly and stuff, okay? So I need you, sit down when your mom tells you to sit down. If you can learn anything from me, that's good. But, you know, focus on your studies, listen to your mom, wash your hands after eating your PB&J. And if she has like one of those Uncrustable things that makes them like little Uncrustables, make sure you get that. Let's pause the super chats for a second as we get on to our next topic. But Cody Nasbit says PS5 or Xbox. I'm a PS man. I've always been I don't have a real bias, but especially in recent years, the PlayStation exclusives are far and away so much better than Xbox. For me, being a single-player narrative experience kind of guy, exclusives like Spider-Man, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, infamous Second Son, it's not even close. First live stream, Paul with the 5 says, can you say hello to my son? Hello, Zephyr. Your dad told me to say this. He's a pretty cool guy. One more time. Let's pause for a second. But Mystic Jeweler with the 19. Hey, Kyle, love the show. Thank you. I'm a security guard in the library of a public university. We go on several patrols each shift and are averaging at least 10 masks violation each patrol. With as many as 30, we are all doomed. Well, yeah. Just shake a baton at him. That always gets him for me. This is not what I was... Eyebrows. If you know me, you know that I love good eyebrow game. And there's no one better at the eyebrow game, in my estimation, than Emilia Clarke here from Game of Thrones. How do you even do that? How do you get the middle of your eyebrow? I can like look concerned and I can move my eyebrows around, but to like, I can't do that. Why am I bringing up eyebrows? Well, one, because now thick eyebrows are the new thing. That's neither here nor there, though. Two, eyebrows are one of the research topics that one of my favorite ceremonies of the year, the Ig Nobel Prizes, highlighted. So you all know the Nobel Prizes, the very prestigious award that highlights amazing achievements throughout the fields of science, medicine, economics, etc. The Ig Nobel Prizes do the same thing, but they're for research that makes you laugh and then think about something. That's kind of like their motto. David says Jim Carrey is probably the best eyebrow guy. That's where I watched a lot of Ace Ventura as a kid, and that's how I learned to control all that stuff. Anyway. So the Ig Nobel Prizes each year highlights a number of ridiculous papers published, many times knowingly ridiculous, published throughout physics, medicine, biology, and all that. And I wanted to highlight a few because these are interesting. So the first one, and one of them serious, and I'm going to admit something to all of you that I don't know if I should, but I'm going to. So this eyebrow one, came from a paper called Eyebrows Cue Grandiose Narcissism. And what this paper found was this conclusion. These data show that distinctive eyebrows reveal narcissists' personality to others, providing a basic understanding of the mechanisms through which people can identify narcissistic personality traits with potential applications to daily life cycle. So this paper was trying to identify, they were saying that people who are like very narcissistic and very into themselves had a lot of distinctive eyebrow motion. And, you know, the data is interesting there, but, you know, for my money, trying to just identify someone who's like super into themselves and narcissistic and all that, just by how much their eyebrows move around, that just seems very far-fetched to me. Like, how would you even... Okay. Some of the other papers, though, were just as funny. See some behind me. The Acoustics Prize, they were trying to identify the resonant frequency of an alligator. And alligators kind of vibrate their vocal areas to produce like infrasounds in the water to call to each other. And to identify those actual resonant frequencies, they put an alligator in a box and filled it with helium. Psychology Prize, that was the eyebrow one. Physics Prize, determining the shape of a living earthworm as it's being vibrated at high frequency. Very, very important stuff. Let me show you. The Entomology Prize, which is a prize for insects, identified a lot of evidence that entomologists are very afraid of spiders. Spiders aren't insects, but entomologists, those 2 additional legs make a big difference. Actually, that's the title of the paper. And the one that I want to get into a little bit more is the Medicine Prize. So this one is called... what it found was diagnosing a long unrecognized medical condition. Misophonia, the distress at hearing other people make chewing sounds. Now, that sounds funny. So the paper's called Misophonia, Diagnostic Criteria for a New Psychiatric Disorder. So what the paper was trying to do was, through the years, there have been many anecdotal reports that hearing certain sounds made certain people fly into a rage. For no reason, apparently. And this was colloquially called misophonia. And so this team of scientists was trying to come up with a new set of diagnostic criteria to identify the psychiatric disorder as a real thing. They recommend that it is a discrete disorder because it has identifiable symptoms that cannot be explained better by other psychiatric disorders. Some of the elements they were talking about was... the presence or anticipation of a specific sound produced by a human being that provokes an impulsive, aversive physical reaction which starts with irritation or disgust that instantaneously becomes anger. This anger initiates a profound loss of self-control with rare but potentially aggressive outbursts. The person recognizes that the anger or disgust is excessive, unreasonable, or out of proportion, but does it anyway. The individual tends to avoid the misophonic situation. And if they do not avoid it, they endure encounters with the sound situation with intense discomfort. And this discomfort causes significant stress in the person's day-to-day life. They might make it difficult for the person to perform important tasks at work, meet new friends, attend classes, or interact with others. Now, I say that because here live, I'm admitting to the world that I have this. I have misophonia. And it sounds weird, and it is weird. But there are certain sounds, and I'm not going to say which because one of you is going to do something weird. But there are certain sounds where I will immediately slam my hand on my desk and get really, really angry. Instantaneous rage, actually, if I hear it, where it's like, "Why are you doing that?" And it got to the point where it's so serious that when I was working in an office, my colleagues knew that certain things that they were doing irritated me and affected me so much that I couldn't even focus. I couldn't even sit in the same room. And so when they did certain triggering things, they would come over to my office door and close the door before they did the thing. That's how bad it was. That I either had to leave, or they had to close the door, or I tell strangers to stop doing stuff. If they're making the kind of sound, I'll be like, stop it. So, I personally am glad that this paper is a proposed diagnostic criteria for this thing, because I 100% have it, and it's nice to have that recognized, because I almost broke like a part of my pinky down here from hitting my desk so hard because I got so angry. Anyway. If you want to check it out, the Ig Nobel Prizes are really, really fun. You can read some of the other ones on their website. And it's research that first makes you laugh and then it makes you think. So if you want to know more about that stuff, I highly suggest looking into it. It's a lot of fun. Reeves says, oh, you get so mad watching the Green Bay Packers, I bet. Shut up. Go Pack, go. Light Halcyon with the 5 says, solidarity, man, I'm the same way. Yeah, a lot of people have sound sensitivities. But I want to be clear, this is the trouble in diagnostic criteria, right? A lot of people, especially teenagers, when they're trying to be cool and get attention, will say that like, oh, I'm so OCD. No, you're not. A lot of people have tendencies that are on the periphery of some of these conditions, but they're not enough to be a full-blown disorder. And I know it can be like kind of attention grabby to say like, oh, I'm so ADD. Yeah, but when you say that, unless you're like diagnosed, you kind of diminish the experience of people who actually have that thing. Because a lot of these conditions are to the point where it interferes, like the criteria said, and I read it, it interferes with day-to-day life, where you can't function in a certain way. And people who have like really bad ADHD or ADD or OCD can hardly function in society. So I'm not saying whoever has solidarity with me in this misophonia thing. I'm not saying your experience doesn't count. I'm saying you should look into your own symptoms to make sure what you're talking about is accurate, because the symptomology is such that it's really specific in the rage part. Excessive reactions. It's not just, oh, I don't like when someone's chewing, or I don't like when someone, clicks their pen. It's, I can hear someone clicking their pen from, from like 5 doors away, and I will get so angry that I cannot do anything else until it stops or I stop it. Slight difference. So if you feel solidarity with people like that, check if it's the rage-inducing part, because that's a big part of it. Kyle says, I've had misophonia forever, and I totally get it. I wonder if it's a Kyle thing. Must be. Doom for Zombies with the 5 says, Hey, love the Kyle from a fellow non-supervillain named Kyle. Did you hear about the new Cosmos series coming? Do you have misophonia too? I did. What is it? Lost Worlds, Unexplored Worlds, Uncharted Worlds? What is it? Anyway, Cosmos has a fantastic production value. Neil deGrasse Tyson is a great presenter. I hope it gets to as many eyeballs as possible. I still prefer the old Carl Sagan series, but in the light of today, man, that series is slow. But I like listening to Carl speak, so. Mike Valente with a 5 says, oh yeah, I'm sorry, you're just not going to mention the poop knife, Kyle? Oh yeah, okay, so I talked about this in an episode of Footnotes, the companion show to Because Science, a couple years ago, and I guess this was just awarded an Ig Nobel Prize. In anthropology, there was kind of like a myth going around, studies that some people had, in the wintertime, pooped, made sure their poop froze, and then carved it into a knife to cut food. A, disgusting. B, ew. C, it doesn't work. The researchers froze some human poop, and they carved it into knives, and it didn't really cut anything. That was awarded an Ig Nobel Prize this year, if you want to know the level that we're talking about. Hibbam with a 10 says, Kyle the Love, Shohei. Here's some help with Lola's food budget. What do her daily meals consist of anyways? 10 Belgian blue cows, 1,500 gallons of coffee, and 1 cricket. She just likes that little finisher. We have Michael T with a 5 who says, Would being having your chair touched and wanting to throw a person through a wall be related to that? No. Misophonia, you can tell from the phonia part, it is related to sound specifically. Not wanting to be touched or not liking things moved that are yours, different. So let's pause the super chats for a second as we got to get to peer review time. So, peer review. As we do every week, I take a comment from the latest episode of the facility and I highlight it, and then we give that person a plaque and they become an honorary member of the facility. This week, I'm giving a plaque for sure to Joshua Clark, who writes on the Baby Centrifuge episode, which is the lowest performing episode we've ever done. Don't know why. People don't like babies. I get it. Joshua Clark says, wait, so yeeting a baby into life, or yeetus a fetus, as some people would say, that's not the craziest thing you've ever heard? A country not existing really takes the cake? So when I read this comment, I immediately thought of the craziest ideas I've ever heard. And there are a couple that are good. My friend thought that narwhals were fictional. That was fun. But my go-to, and this isn't even like a scientific theory or anything, this is just crazy. It's worse than Flat Earth to me. I forget the name of the website. Maybe one of my staff can find it and put it in the chat, but it's called the Bigger Luke Theory, or BLT. My friend Dan Casey did a whole video about it, and there is an entire website and at least more than one person who think, for real, that there are 2 versions of Luke Skywalker in the Star Wars movies. Normal Luke and Bigger Luke. And Bigger Luke is about an inch taller. And they claim that both Lukes exist in the Star Wars universe simultaneously, both perform different actions, and there's evidence everywhere in a number of scenes. They even have like their own acronyms and stuff. Like, well, this is a classic BLT. I mean, this is a classic example of Bigger Luke theory right here. I mean, you can see it just from the perspective based on Yoda's height. 1 inch taller, definitely Bigger Luke. Different character, wrong story. Bigger Luke is insanity to me. So yeah, Finland not existing is really weird. Narwhal's not existing. Bigger Luke is maybe the craziest thing I've ever heard. It's worse than conspiracy. So I don't know. You guys can look it up. But for making me reminisce about when Dan was researching this episode at Nerdist and I listened to it and I went on the website and I read through everything that these people think, we lost our minds. We're like, what? It was so weird. Anyway, for making me think about that again, Joshua Clark, you are now an honorary member of the facility. Fantastic. Fantastic. What do you mean? I know shipping is... Joshua, I have someone to talk to about the fulfillment of your plaque. Don't I? Yeah. So I'll be right back after after this short commercial break. Please enjoy maybe very close to the best fan art I've ever gotten. Right now. You thought someone was going to say something, didn't you? No. Just looking at David's art. It's so cool. I don't know what it is, but he tagged me and he said it was for us. So, thank you, David. It's now my... It's my phone background now. I love it. Jay Arrows with the... Let's pause the super chats. We only have 15 minutes. Let's get to our last topic. But Jay Arrows with the $99.99 donation says, finally caught you during office hours. What's up with the stock split on the shares for the moon base caught in the Lagrange point? What? Bribery for a response. I mean, this is a decent bribe. What's up with the stock split on the shares for the moon base caught in the Lagrange point? Jay, I have no idea what you're talking about. Lagrange point is a point in space where the gravity kind of cancels out, more or less. So you can put a base there or a something there, and it will just stay in a stable orbit. But splitting the stock shares on it, you're not talking about that deal I made with Bezos to ship some Basilisk components to the L1 Lagrange point, are you? Because we can talk about that later. Let's get on to our last topic, which is, as you can see, Leafy. Just like that guy who got banned. Who cares? Streamer culture is weird. Just a bunch of like 18-year-olds making like $1 million just being dumb on the internet. What do you expect? You give anyone that amount of money at that age, they're gonna be dumb. If you let 14-year-old Kyle say every single thought that he had out to 1 million people every week, I'd sound insane. And these kids, you ever go on the YouTube trending tab? It's like another universe. Plants. Before I get too ranty, Marsh. This is the scariest plant that I know of. This is an Australian, because of course it is, an Australian stinging tree, or a gimpy plant or tree. And these are absolutely terrifying. I talked about these plants a little bit in my episode on Because Science about poison ivy and how she could weaponize plants. And this was my example of the scariest. There's a lot of lore, unconfirmed lore, about how bad this plant is. And I know we have a couple of Australian viewers, so maybe confirm or deny if you ever heard these, but these plants are reportedly so painful if you touch them that horses have thrown themselves off cliffs to get away from the pain. People have touched these plants, and no, the craziest one is I believe it was an officer from the government. He went down into the bush, and he used the bathroom, numero dos, and he accidentally wiped his butt with one of these plants, and the pain was so bad he shot himself with his service gun. So if that gives you an idea of just how painful these are, those are unconfirmed. But it is well known that these Australian stinging trees are tremendously painful. Why? Well, they don't look that bad, right? Well, you say that. If you look closelier, I mean, as you see in Exhibit A there, they're so bad there's warning signs everywhere. Don't touch nothing. If you're coming in this area, don't touch nothing, because if you look at the 5mm example in B there, millions of tiny, tiny, tiny barbs filled with poison. They're more or less like hypodermic needles. This is like that. Touching this plant is like that scene in Saw 2 where the woman falls into the pit of needles. And if you go to the micrometer range in C there, you see the distribution is crazy. There's so many, and they're all filled with venom. You can see in G there that it even, like, not only does it hurt, but it elevates your skin temperature, so you feel like, you know, a red-hot nail is being driven into your flesh, reportedly. But a group of scientists wanted to figure out why. And what they found was rather interesting. So when you look at these plants up close, I mean, you can see just how sinister those look. What makes them painful is what's inside, obviously, but it's going to be the chemical composition specifically of the venom, of the toxin, and what it does to you. So now I want to take an exercise, kind of like we did at the beginning. I want to read the conclusion of this paper to you, and I want to be your vessel to break it down. Let's see if we can break down what this paper is actually saying, okay? This is an exercise in science communication. I want to try this with you. I've never done this. So here's the conclusion of the paper. In summary, we show here that the active pain-causing principle in the stinging hairs of Australasian stinging trees is a family, pretty good, right? Pretty good so far, is a family of ultra-stable mini-proteins. Okay, so far so good. That activate nociceptors, those are pain-related receptors, okay, so far so good, by modulating the inactivation of voltage-gated sodium channels expressed on sensory neurons. What does that mean? These tiny, stable proteins activate pain-related receptors by changing how sodium channels on the surface of cells function on neurons that sense pain. Okay. Little tiny proteins change how things go in and out of a cell, and they activate sensation in that cell for pain. That makes sense. The 3D structure of these gympie-tides, which is named after the Aboriginal peoples of Australia, call these gympie trees. So they named these in honor of that, the gympie-tides, the molecules, is reminiscent of animal venom toxins targeting the same receptors, thus representing a remarkable case of inter-kingdom convergent evolution of plant and animal venoms. That's fantastic. So what that means is often in evolution, a solution to some environmental problem will be so good that multiple unrelated species will come to the same conclusion. So this convergent evolution can be seen, for example, in bats and dolphins, which are distantly related, but both independently evolved echolocation. The evolution of eyes, like we have, evolved multiple times independently. So it's not like we came from a direct line all the way back from things that had eyes. No, there's different distinct lines that all evolved eyes, convergently came upon the same solution. This plant is an example of it created spider-like and cone snail-like venom independently of spiders and cone snails. So this venom is so good at its job at repelling people from touching this plant, which would make the plant more, reproductively fit over time because it's not being eaten or uprooted or anything like that. The venom is so good at doing this, it shows up inter-kingdom, not just between plants, but plants and animals both coming upon the same solution. That just shows how powerful evolution is as a crafter of creature. Our work clarifies the molecular basis for the pain caused by these plants while enabling structure activity and convergent evolution studies to define how ancestrally distinct peptides, different, in venoms may elicit the same response at pain receptors. Now, usually, if you're not in the field of study, all of that conclusion would have sounded like a bunch of gibberish, but I hope by going through it, that was a little bit more understandable. So this Australian stinging tree is so painful and has so much lore around it because it independently evolved a similar venom to spiders and cone snails and other animals with very effective venoms and toxins. And those toxins activate pain receptors by changing the way that sodium enters and exits neuron cells. We did it. We just interpreted a scientific paper together. Now, if you want the gist, if you want a non-Kyle Hill explanation for that, these plants hurt because there's like pain goo in those stingy bits. I prefer what I said. Robotomy F with the 15. It says, I'm Commander Shepard. I'm Commander Shepard. And this is my favorite YouTube channel on Citadel. Well, thank you, Commander. Actually, Femshep, hashtag Femshep, the only real Shepherd, is a fan of the show. I met her at Comic-Con when I was when I was moderating Adam Savage's panel. Jennifer Hale came up to us both and said she was a fan. So that's a feather in my nerd cap. So Commander Shepard, indeed. We also have 10 from Thomas Hadrick, who says, don't spend this on not pizza. I don't spend this on pizza. No. I've gained a lot of chunk in lockdown. I don't need any more chunk, so I'm not doing pizza. Misting Wolf says, alternatively, this plant makes many owies. Don't touch it. Luis Venezuela says, just finished my engineering dynamics exam. Can I get a good luck shout out? Good luck. If you studied hard, you took it seriously, I'm sure you'll do great. Although engineering exams are pretty hard, but if you're watching this live stream right now, I bet you're a smart cookie and you did just fine. One time I got 100% in one of my engineering classes. In steel design, 100% on every exam. I crushed it. One of my hacks for paying attention in class, and this was true for every single class I took in college and graduate school, sit at the very front of every class every time. I get very easily distracted by what people are doing. Is their laptop open? They're just looking at Facebook, and Facebook is one of the worst things to happen to modern society, and that person's writing notes. That person has a weird head. I wonder what's under that cap. Eliminate distraction. I sat at the front of every single class, and I took great notes, and I paid attention, and I asked a lot of questions, and I went to office hours. Don't give that. Sean Bly with the 10. If you had a portal gun and set up an infinite loop in a vacuum, you would hit light speed in about 354 days, 1 hour, 31 minutes, and 6 seconds. That seems too slow. Would anything stop your acceleration to prevent this? No. If there's no air resistance, if you were, let's say some gravitational force was pulling you through the void and there was zero resistance, there is resistance in the void. If you go fast enough, you will experience pressure from hydrogen and other discrete atoms floating around there, and such that near light speed, you'd be irradiated to death in under a second. But if you were in a true void, truly nothing in your way, then nothing stops your acceleration. You can accelerate infinitely. Up until a point where you start approaching light speed, it takes too much energy to continue to accelerate at that rate. Lilith with the 5, it says, hey show, love the Kyle. Is Kevin your employee or captive? No, Kevin's here. What? Don't you dare get on camera. Music Central Piano always coming in hot at the very end of these streams with the 5115. It says, keep up the great work, Kyle. Stay rational and continue to inspire and encourage scientific curiosity. I was going to say stay curious, but that's my friend Joe Hansen's line, so I'm going to say, well, I already have kind of a catchphrase. But I used to have something written, when I was working at Nerdist, I had something written on my office wall. Be fun be interesting, be be fun, be entertaining, be informative. That's all I'm trying to do. So thank you. This is all going towards the world's largest, I'm not going to spoil it yet, but it involves a few thousand magnets. Like 2,700 magnets. And they're really strong. Anyway, Mashpool 1 with the 10. Is a Gimpy Gimpy tree worse than the Manganiel tree, aka the Death Tree? So let's pause the super chats. We're at the end of the show here. The Manganiel tree is a tree where every single part of it is poison. And we went through that. If you want to check it out on the Poison Ivy episode on the Because Science old... I don't even know where to find it anymore. But the Manganiel tree, the bark is poisonous. If you burn the leaves, the smoke is poisonous. If you sit underneath it while it's raining, the oil will come off the leaves. That's acidic. It will burn you. It's also poisonous. And it will cause like blisters and welts if it gets on your skin. Reportedly, that is nowhere near as painful as walking face first into the Gimpy Gimpy tree. This dude reportedly shot himself because he wiped his butt with a leaf. Oh, man. We have 50 and okay. From Thomas, who says, that plant is horrible, but it's no Manganiel tree. Well, guess what I just went through. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me for this edition of Office Hours. Wow, we went through a lot today. I'm feeling pretty good. You can get yourself one of these if you want. It's not invisible. Don't worry. What did we go through? We went through a study that identified an amazing example of convergent evolution between plants and animals, which I honestly cannot think of. This is the first example I've ever heard of this in the Australian stinging tree. That wasn't. We also took one of your comments about what's the craziest idea I've ever heard. It's the bigger Luke theory. It is bononkers. We also talked about the Ig Nobel Prizes, one identifying narcissists by their eyebrows, talking about misophonia, talking about poop knives. Check out the Ig Nobel Prizes. They're always fun. And the scientists themselves always have a lot of fun presenting this. Sometimes they put on plays, operas, little demonstrations. They have... Scientists are people too, and when you look at something like the Ig Nobel Prizes, the humanity, the joy, the fun really comes out. And... it goes a long way in kind of humanizing scientists. So if you like that kind of thing, check it out. We also talked about denim and microfibers, and it's how it's the new scourge on humanity. And finally, we talked about diamond planets, how there's possibly trillions of them, and harvesting one would get 70 quadrillion times more wealth than is currently contained in the entire planet. Thank you so much for watching this edition of Office Hours. If you want to talk to me beyond Office Hours almost every day, I'm mostly a lurker. Not from StarCraft 2, although that is my favorite unit. Raynor just annihilated Clem with some workers on Golden Wall during... I watch a lot of esports. You can go to patreon.com/KyleHill. You get to join the facility. You can be an intern, a research assistant, an associate professor. You can be a professor emeritus, even though those are sold out. You can join the facility, get on the staff, get access to our Discord. You get episodes early. You get weekly live stream, monthly private live streams with me, just you and me, and that's coming up this week. You get to give me episode suggestions, a couple of which I've already done, and some are coming in the next few weeks. And of course, all of that support goes directly back into the facility and helping me buy thousands and thousands of magnets. This week on the facility, the next episode involves a radioactive thing that I bought in the mail. And hopefully you enjoy that one. I got some beautiful footage of something very, very cool happening with something that I shouldn't hold too close to my brain for an extended period of time. But until then, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. I know the world seems like it's on fire right now. But there's only one way to remedy that. In the same way that y'all are simping for science, the only way to make our voices heard to get people in places where they can make decisions that align with our values. No matter what those values are, no matter what side you're on, no matter where your morals are, your values, you should register to vote and make your voice heard. Because if there's one way to really see what everyone thinks and really see where our priorities should be, well, then just everybody vote and let's see where the cards land. So make sure you're registered to vote. Make sure you're nice to each other for science's sake. Because this is all we got. Until next time.